Thank you, Fred and A3, for this great opportunity to speak with a great bunch of tech folks, and it's really good to speak with you all. I see a lot of familiar faces and names, and some new names, so it's great to meet all of you again. And we're going to take you through about 90 minutes we've got in terms of a presentation that'll include a demo toward the end. But we want to just, bring you up to speed on everything that's happening with CTERA and global file systems within the data storage ecosystem, and we'll kick it off. And obviously, I think you all are veterans to Tech Live, and you can feel free to ask questions, chat, put them in the chat, or just shout them out, and we'll be happy to take them as we go. But just to introduce you to the team that's on the line today from CTERA, we have Laurent Eschel. He's our founder and CEO. He'll be taking part of this presentation as well. Aaron Brand is our CTO. I'm Jim Crook, and Shannon Pope, our Director of Customer Success, will be joining us later to deliver that demo that I mentioned earlier. And you can see in the background, this is a shot of Tel Aviv. CTERA is based in Israel. We'd welcome you to join us at the offices whenever that's available and safe for everyone to do. We'd love to meet you in person, but this is the next best thing. So thanks again, Fred, for this opportunity. All right, just in terms of an agenda, we're going to start with a quick overview of CTERA, and we'll talk about the multi-cloud global file system, the technology that underpins our platform. We'll take you through some customer stories, and we'll talk about a little bit about a new product that's under wraps for now, but we'll be launching in March, and we want to give you a sneak peek of that. And then we'll take you through the platform. Shannon will take you through the platform, give you a sense of what the CTERA Enterprise File Services platform looks like. Okay, so just to kick things off in terms of and about CTERA and what we do, we are the global leader in edge to cloud file services, and our platform is powered by global file system technology that connects remote users and remote sites to any cloud, whether that's private, public, hybrid, multi-cloud, without compromising performance or security. And really, security has always been at the forefront of what we do as a company. Our founders came out of a very security-focused background at Checkpoint. Laurent and Aaron and others had a startup that was acquired by Checkpoint, and they spun out of that and sought to bring that same level of data privacy, data security to cloud file storage. And I say we're the leader in this space. We've deployed our edge solutions in more than 110 countries, and more than 50,000 of our edge filer solutions have been deployed. And we're working with really some of the biggest names in the world, top 5 banks, insurance, media and telecom. You get a sense here in the bottom right of the well-known brands that we're working with, from McDonald's, GE, Carlyle Group, really spanning across a wide number of verticals as well. This is something that we'll be announcing next week, so consider it under embargo for now. But we'll make sure that all of you get this press release as it comes out next week. But we're ready to announce another very strong year for the business with CTERA. Strong business growth, new customer wins in the Fortune 500. New product releases. We'll talk a little bit about that as well as a recap. We'll be announcing this next week, and you'll be sure to get that. But overall, the message here is it was another strong year for CTERA, and we're really excited about the future momentum and growth here. And so, just as we start thinking about where CTERA fits into the whole data storage technology landscape, we think it's important to look through a lens of where we see this market going. And we're really looking at the year of 2021 and beyond as the years of infrastructure really being everywhere. And obviously there was this massive shift to work from home and satellite offices, remote offices last year due to the pandemic. We really see that as increasing the amount of devices at the edge, data being generated at the edge, but that was already really driving forward a trend that was already happening in terms of the vast majority of unstructured data being generated outside of the data center. And so when we add that on top of what was already happening in terms of remote work and emerging tech like Internet of Things and machine generated learning, et cetera, this trend is really driving forward in terms of having that infrastructure everywhere. And so we expect that every IT environment moving forward will be hybrid. There'll be an element of edge, there'll be an element of cloud, core, and that storage and file data storage specifically will be it must be instrumented and accessible really from everywhere.
Can I just jump in, please? This is Fred. We have a question in the chat. This is from David Norfolk, one of the analysts. And David was asking, does CTERA currently see itself as complementing or replacing database, e.g. non-SQL technology?
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Complementing or replacing?
We're not really in the structured data space. We're focused on unstructured data, meaning mostly what that is comprised of is file shares and home folders and typical file server workloads. So that's the big part of technology that we are replacing. It's the legacy NAS that are supporting home folders and file shares at the edge. So it's more of an unstructured play versus a structured database play. But thanks for that question.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Fred. Okay. So if we follow this assumption then, and 40% of you said that we'll see 20 to 30% of workloads at the edge. If we keep following that assumption, more workloads are moving out of the data center. It really aligns with this idea that traditional file storage market share and data storage market share in general is being eaten up by a combination of hyperscale cloud providers like the AWSs and the Azures of the world, as well as hyperconverged edge systems. The SimpliVities, VMware, Nimble Storage DHCI. So if we follow these trends, we're thinking that really the traditional storage as we know it, that file server, that NAS, that the traditional file storage is really starting to fade out of the picture. And based on what we've seen with COVID, it's going to be it might even be a quicker quote unquote demise than what we're seeing in this trend in this chart already. And so
Jim, I'm sorry to jump in again. We've got more questions coming in. So Mary Branscombe is asking, what does the dollar price axis represent on the chart?
That should be billions. Okay,
that's an important detail.
That is very important. Thank you for pointing that out, Mary.
And then David Norfolk, one of the analysts here, is asking, but no data is actually unstructured, and modern databases can hold data that is in documents rather than tables.
Oh, Aaron, do you want to respond to that statement from David?
Yeah. So as Jim said, we deal with replacing NAS filers, file servers, and it's correct that modern databases can store blobs of data, but we're talking about up to petabytes of information with hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of concurrent users, with supporting full compatibility with the existing protocols like SMB and NFS. We're talking about fully migration tools for automatically migrating data from existing filers like NetApp and Windows file servers while preserving all the permissions and extended attributes. So this is much more than what a database can do. And it's meant to be a replacement for what you would formerly do with a filer such as a NetApp.
Thank you. Going back to Mary's question, Mary was asking to clarify, is that spending, those $1 billion, Jim, is that spending?
Correct. Spending, yes.
Okay. Lovely, thank you.
Any other questions, Fred, or should we keep going?
No more questions at the moment. I will jump back in when we have more coming in.
Great, thank you, Fred. Excuse me. Okay, so what we think is needed for the enterprise, as we talk about, the workloads being everywhere, distributed across edge, core, cloud. What's needed right now is a file system, a modern file system that connects all these various access points at the edge, software defined, something that combines elastic cloud scale with the fast, secure local access from any location and any device. And really, this multi-cloud global file system is what CTERA delivers. And we're going to get into what that is, but just to look at this challenge from a COVID focused lens, as what I think a lot of you are obviously writing about and talking to clients about. Depending on whom you're talking to, I think a lot of IT people will tell you that it could, the entire file storage and data storage platform it might be in a state of upheaval, they might say, based on the idea that the traditional NAS that we spoke about in previous slides, it's really ill-equipped to handle the challenges of what we call data distancing, where users and home offices and remote offices branches are scattered across much wider geographic locations than ever before. And we really think that this might even hasten the demise of traditional NAS quicker than those stats showed on the previous slide that we were talking about. But really, if we think about the challenges of what enterprises are going through now with their data storage, it can be summed up as really NAS is only designed for that HQ experience where they're supporting any number of users in one location. And as they scatter, as challenges like COVID and other market trends force that scatter away from that single large campus, it really presents an IT nightmare in terms of having to support all these different new kinds of users. You have poor latency, poor performance over that WAN latency. There are disconnected data silos that are inflating costs. You have more threat of ransomware and other malware, really due to the increased attack surface attack area, or attack surface area, I should say. Network permissions, authorization, network access, all of these things contribute to a really strong challenge that traditional file storage, traditional NAS is really ill-equipped to handle. And so where we see and where organizations are seeing the value of a multi-cloud global file system is that it's solving these data distancing challenges. You can migrate data to the cloud while you can still keep that local cache, which gives you that local performance while you're still leveraging cloud for capacity and elastic scale. You're able to connect branches and users to a single namespace, and you don't have any more users trying to access the filer over the WAN, or other users using sanctioned or unsanctioned file sharing tools, or others using other tools. You break down those silos. You have a single namespace with all the same permissions, all the same file access points as they were using before at the HQ campus. So what that represents is an HQ grade experience, regardless of the location that you're in as a user. And as an IT organization, you're driving significant cost savings, not only through just cloud economics of the cloud, but the ability to globally dedupe data using deduplication file techniques, and that's happening at a global scale, which brings down your overall costs as well. So that's really how we see the market moving forward, and where our solution fits into it. And before I hand it over to Laurent to discuss the CTERA platform in detail, maybe Rachel, we can run that second poll question about multi-cloud investment. Thanks, Rachel. So another question to the field here. In your opinion, what percentage of enterprises have deployed or are seriously considering multi-cloud infrastructure investments? Less than 10%, 10 to 25%, 25 to 50%, 50 to 75%, or greater than 75%? We'll be, again, interested in your thoughts here.
Okay, it looks like about half, nearly everybody has responded. Let's give them a couple more minutes, a couple more seconds.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
Okay. Interesting. Scattered answers again, but looks like the largest percentage of the group, 35%, thinks 50 to 75% of enterprises have deployed or are seriously considering multi-cloud infrastructure. And I think that's fairly in line with what we're seeing as an organization as well. But I think this speaks to the idea that there are different thoughts about multi-cloud and the prevalence of that within the enterprise, and I think that would be reflected at the enterprise level as well. But thank you for this feedback. That's great information to know. And at this point I will hand it over to Laurent, and I think Laurent, you should have control of the slides on your end as well.
Thank you very much, Jim. Hi everyone. Great to see everyone, all the familiar faces and some new faces here. So as Jim said, CTERA, we provide a global file system, multi-cloud global file system. And looking at the high-level architecture, one of the unique things in our approach, basically, that it's a two-tier architecture. So you can see here the main blue square where it says global file system, that's the backend. Okay, we separate backend from frontend. And the backend is a hosted system or private system that sits in a data center and connects to any cloud of your choice. Usually this connection is over S3 for object storage, for the golden image of the data, okay? And has a set of control tools that you see here on the right with the data insight and security scanning, okay? And that representation of the data can be accessed through different clients. So we have what we call the CTERA Edge, which is basically an on-prem filer. So you look at it like a SMB NFS, like a small NAS device that sits on-prem at the remote location over latency in a branch office and the regional data center, and anywhere you need it, and basically connects to the backend, okay? And then we have the CTERA Drive, which is a desktop client. Think of it like a OneDrive or Dropbox or something like that, but it's part of the global file system, okay? So it doesn't connect. If you want it private, it's private. It shares the same namespace as the edge and gives you the experience that you would expect from a modern file access solution at the desktop level, okay? And that's CTERA Drive. And then we also have a solution for VDIs, which basically allows you to put the VDI workspace, the files of the VDI environment, also as another endpoint device. And all of these can access from different locations at the same time the global file system through the global file system middleware you see here in the middle, which in turn stores in any one cloud of your choice that you with full control and security. So that's a very high level view of the architecture. Will provide a more deep dive, of course, but I see there's some chat popping here. So if there are any questions on this slide, if not, we'll move forward.
Yes, maybe one, Laurent Bertranguer from Paris. Is it possible with your solutions also to protect the data from SaaS applications?
To protect the data from SaaS application, yes.
Yeah.
Basically, the unique thing with our application is that you can totally fence it. Okay, everything you see here in blue, okay, basically you can deploy even in a dark site. Okay, you can connect it, you can put it behind your firewall, and you can set any level of control for data going in and out from this system. Many other solutions in the market require you to put the backend, source the backend as SaaS, right? Or they have separate solution for Edge, for NAS, and for Drive, for desktop, right? One of the things we consider the most unique about our system, that it's holistic, it provides both Edge and Drive, NAS and desktop, and you can fully control the boundaries of the deployment.
Okay, but it means that you put your gateway or your system on the DMZ?
Yes, you can put everything in DMZ. You can put everything in a private network. We have military customers that run this in top secret networks that are totally disconnected from the internet, for example.
Oh, okay. And is it possible to have in French we call it a rupture protocolaire, a protocolar break between your gateway and the data to be sure to have a double protection, in fact, because it's disrupt the protocol between the SaaS or the data coming from the cloud or coming from inside going to the cloud.
So you mean a protocol break?
Yeah. There is some possibility in a gateway to in fact to break the protocol and to have another one, or proprietary one, or a more safer one after the gateway to protect the data. And but I don't know to say it in English.
So the entire protocol between the edge and the middleware, the global file system. Okay, when the data leaves the edge device or the desktop drive, it's totally encrypted in a proprietary protocol. So the protocol between the edge and the cloud is our proprietary protocol. It doesn't rely on Microsoft or NFS or SMB or something like that. This is a proprietary protocol that's totally encrypted. Both the data is encrypted both at rest, so before the data sets are encrypted, and the tunnel, it all goes inside an encrypted tunnel. Okay, it's designed for, it's using DEVOPS, so it's only transmits incremental differences as needed. Global DEVOPS, if one site already uploaded data, another site will also not upload it. And so it's moving the data to the middleware, to the global file system, and then it's storing in the object, which can be Amazon encrypted objects. So even if someone hacks into your S3 account, if you're using a public one, they can still not deconstruct the data, the original data from it.
Yeah, it's another way to do it, in fact.
Yes. Only if they have the encryption keys, which we give full control to the customer over the encryption keys. Again, they can run everything private also, but they can also choose to put some of it hosted in Amazon, Azure, or elsewhere, but they can still control all the encryption. Okay?
Okay, well, thank you.
Any other questions before we move on?
Yes, we have a question. Sorry, was that Mary talking? I was about to read your question, Mary. No, okay. So we have a question from Mary Branscombe, one of the journalists here. Can you discuss why an organization would use a third-party tool like CTERA rather than using one of the multi-cloud hybrid solutions from the cloud providers like Arc or Anthos?
Okay. Anthos and these sort of solutions are, they don't really provide this type of service. Okay, we're talking here about a file service, and not the, some of the cloud providers coming out with distributed cloud solution like Anthos. Amazon came out last year with Outposts. Okay, we're actually partnering with these solutions. For example, you might have seen our announcement with Amazon that we are complementary to that we're certified for Amazon Outposts. They do not provide distributed file services. Most of the time it's about distribution of compute workloads, block storage, and in some cases do some distributed object, but what we provide here is unique and doesn't fall under the category of these platforms. That's why they're actually partnering with us.
Okay. We have another question. This one is from Alex McDonald. Alex is representing SNIA EMEA, the Storage Networking Industry Association. For those of you unfamiliar with that, the SNIA is a vendor independent body that aims to educate the market about standards and everything else that goes with data storage and data protection.
Of course.
Alex is asking, what does the protocol run on or run in?
Well, Alex, can you, I think Jim dropped, maybe the presentation dropped. Let's see if he resumes. If not, I'll share from my computer. But can you elaborate what you mean? What is the protocol in?
I'm sorry, I'm just coming off mute. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, we hear you well. Thank you.
Good.
Yes, we can, Alex. Thank you.
Okay, so the question is, what does the protocol run on or in? Is it an Ethernet-based protocol? Are you running UDP? Are you running over some form of TCP? Is it RPC-based? I mean, I'm interested.
Aaron, maybe you take that in parallel. I'll upload the deck again.
So we have the filers. The clients talk to the filers using standard protocols, including SMB and NFS. And the filers talk to the backend system. They talk to the backend system and they talk to the object storage. So to the global file system, they use a protocol called CTTP, which is based on TCP or encrypted with TLS 1.2, which is the protocol for transferring all the metadata aspects of the file system, including the names of the files, the permissions, the extended attributes, and so on. And the data is transferred to the object storage using HTTPS, typically using either S3 protocol or Azure Blob Storage, or a number of, we support virtually all the object storage vendors in the industry. But on the more general aspect, everything is based on TCP. Does that answer the question? Is that what you asked? Okay.
Okay. If there are no more questions, maybe we'll move to this slide, and maybe there'll be other questions after, because this is a more detailed view of the architecture. Okay. And it basically shows an example of a deployment with multiple edge locations. Okay. In each of these locations, basically a customer deploys the CTERA edge filer, which is a caching filer with multi-site sync and archiving. Okay. Some of them can be larger, that for headquarters, then they'll use a larger device, and some of them can be smaller, and then they have smaller configuration options for that. Cache size can vary. You know, some sites can have 1 terabyte cache, another site can have 100 terabyte cache. Okay, depending on the number of users, usually up to thousands of users behind each gateway. All of these use this protocol that Aaron just described, connecting to the CTERA portal, which is the middleware, data center middleware, okay, that's running the global file system. It's a multi-tenant management system. So if you have departments, you can have tiers of managers that can manage subsets of the entire network. And you also have the remote users, and that's the CTERA drive. These are the desktop clients that can do sync and share, like a Dropbox-like experience. We also do cache drive, which basically you have another drive on your desktop, and you can access it and, you know, elastic rows, as well as backup and all these platforms. So, and all these connect as well here to this global file system, which in turn has both can connect to multiple S3 buckets. So it's a true multi-cloud solution, and you can have a choice of public S3, private S3, bring your own S3 type option to the customer, and the content and security management systems for automation, security scanning, virus, DLP, authentication, all of that. And on the client side, we have either desktops or virtual machines behind edge filers, or sometimes IoT devices like cameras and scanners and things like that all connect to the system. So this is the more detailed architecture. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Liran, I got another question, Bertrand.
Yes, Bertrand, please.
In the backend in S3, to use object lock or immutable bucket is complementary to your solution to ensure a more secure backend, or it's not necessary with your solution?
I will answer this question. The solution on its own provides immutable snapshots without requiring enabling the object lock on the object storage. However, in order to provide another layer of protection, we often recommend to our customers to enable versioning in the object storage, including the locking of the previous versions. And the reason of that is if in theory somebody hacks into your object store directly, we want to offer another level of protection against them tampering with your data or destroying the data there. So, but the solution does not require it. It includes snapshots that are immutable by definition.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Not at the moment. No, not at the moment. We'll keep an eye on the chat.
Okay. Thank you very much. So and now this shows an example of a small number of sites, but we actually have customers with thousands of sites and many tens of thousands of users connected to the system. We also have an API-based integration, so sometimes there are devices that connecting and not just human people, human users behind the computer. So that's on the architecture. Now, let's look at, basically there are three main components here, right? There's the edge, the filer, the drive, the desktop, and the portal, which is the management and the global file system in the center. Let's look at each one of these. So the edge, what is it? CTERA Edge. So basically it's a filer. It does SMB and NFS protocols. It supports the Windows ACLs, the permissions. So when you, let's say you have a legacy system, your NetApp system, a Windows systems, an EMC, you want to move the data, it would preserve the entire structure of file folders, DFS, permissions, everything will be smoothly migrated into the CTERA platform and also enforced once you move the data to the cloud. In terms of authentication, it would connect to the user's Active Directory, single sign-on, all the permissions that are needed. And basically the users will not see any difference. So let's say that you had a 200 terabyte NetApp system, you're moving it to a cache system of, let's say, 20 terabyte and everything else in the cloud and half a peta in the cloud. You can move them to this system and the users will not see any difference in their user experience. But now instead of having 200 terabyte on-prem, you have a 20 terabyte cache and unlimited object at a fraction of the cost. Okay. The cloud caching is basically the ability to do caching on the device. So you have a drive, we call it /cloud. There's a cloud folder on the device, and that's a drive, looks like a drive, but actually this is an elastic drive. So you can put as many data as you want on it. It will grow itself dynamically, elastically, and once you reach the threshold of the cache, it will start evicting data based on a least frequently used policy automatically. But if you want certain data to be pinned locally, you can also designate certain folders to be available at all times. They will be forced to stay local, and you can guarantee your performance, land speed performance. Once connected to the global file system, basically you can sync data between sites. So if you have multi-site, data can be shared between sites. We're working on this deck. I can upload a version. Jim is in Boston. He automatically gets the update in his site, and we can collaborate on the data. We mentioned the global dedupe, and everything is on a global object storage. So usually the cache only holds a fraction of the data, and everything, the master copy is in the object, which is a dramatic cost decrease relative to NAS solutions.
Sorry.
Yes, please. Yes.
Again from Alex. He says, is the cache eventually consistent or does it use lock-in? And then Simon says, how does the cache handle consistency?
Within a filer, within a specific site, it supports locking. Between different sites are the way that we believe is the right way to work is eventually consistent, like typical object storage eventual consistency. And the reason is that we want each of the sites to have 100% LAN performance and to be able to operate even without network connectivity, without internet connectivity for all the hot data. So since we are between sites, we're eventually consistent. It means that if let's say in one of your branch offices, you lose the internet connection, the employees can still work on all the hot data or the pin data that they have, and it doesn't have to consult with anything in the cloud or central.
It also enables you to do large deployments. Strong multi-site locking, global locking usually limits the size of deployments to the small dozens at best case. And with our system, you can do thousands of sites, and we have customers with thousands of sites working efficiently.
Yeah. And since we have also the clients, the agents that are deployed on the laptops or the mobile devices, the scale can be often even higher.
Yep.
Tens of thousands or 100,000.
More than 100,000.
All working concurrently.
Yep. So we talked about the management. We have a more deeper zoom in on that in a later slide about the portal. But another thing is the built-in data protection. You know, in traditional NAS systems, you know, you buy the NAS and then you immediately have to purchase a backup system for the NAS, right? It's part of the cost. You buy a NetApp and you buy Commvault, right? Something like that. So here, the whole idea is that you don't need to back up this system. This system is self-backing because basically every file you put in the cache is automatically sent to the object. Object you can already define you can define it as multi-zone. And then basically if you have multiple copies of the data. We do versioning inside our system. So basically you can roll back files to earlier versions and you can control how the granularity of that. And you can do DR. So let's say the filer fails for some reason or the site is down, you can immediately set up an alternative filer in the cloud or local. It would download the metadata dynamically and would start rebuilding the cache, and users will have almost immediate access to data. And even without that, even without setting a secondary filer, users can always access the data from a desktop because we are the only one to do both edge filer and desktop. With the desktop, you can access the data right away, or even clientless. Just go opening a web browser. We have a web presentation of the global file system, and users can access the data anytime. And that's really very important for many of our customers. And the last thing here on the right, the bottom on the right, is the content-aware security. Our customers really, you know, especially last year with all the ransomware that's been, you know, going uncontrolled, they really ask have a lot of requirements about content security. So we provide virus scanning both at the filer level as well as in the cloud, because you want it at the filer when files are entering the system, but you also want it in the cloud because maybe there is a virus that came in later and already is not in the cache and it's sitting in the cloud. So really the best way to do it is to scan both in the cloud and on the edge, and we're the only one to do the dual scanning. And then also full audit trail where you can actually see all can do legal holds and you know, all the compliance requirements for tracking down a certain file operation that took place. In terms of deployment options, so we really like the virtual filers, and most of our customers are actually in virtual, where we don't do any hardware from CTERA. You can deploy it in any one of the on-prem hypervisors or any one of the clouds. So you can set your file virtually anywhere. But we also have some physical appliance options.
Darren, I got a question.
Yes, please.
Bertrand. I will put a video because it's better to see my face when we ask questions, as I said. Today, especially in Europe, there is always a debate around the sovereignty. And do you have in mind to also extend to more local providers than Azure, Google, AWS, and so on?
Yes, we actually in Europe, we are embedded in some of the service providers, also the regional ones. So if it's Orange Business Services or Telefonica, a few others, and some hosting companies in different countries, and we have MSP. We didn't talk about the go-to-market, but we don't provide the cloud service from CTERA. We basically rely on local managed service providers and hosting companies to provide that service. You know, in any country today in Europe, we have partners that can provide this service to customers that want to source the backend as a service. So we have it in Germany, we have it in, and we'll talk about also IBM and HP also provide that as a service.
So effectively, you're providing the software, and then there's a second. How is that organised in the payment front? I mean, does the customer have to pay the service provider and yourself, or would they buy your software through the service provider?
So sometimes they buy through. If a partner is both an MSP as well as a reseller of CTERA, they can sell the whole package, and we have customers that sell the whole package. In some other cases, you know, there was a question Jim was asking in the poll about multi-cloud. What's the whole idea about multi-cloud is that you separate the decision from the software from the decision about infrastructure. And that, you know, a customer already has a contract with Amazon. A customer already has a contract with Azure. So they buy our software on a subscription base based on their usage, but they pay Amazon and Azure separately with the corporate contracts that they have with them.
Okay, thank you.
That also, I think, it's the best transparency, that we're not trying to sell them terabytes. Basically, here's the value of the software, pay what you think, you know, we'll convince you that this is the value for the software, but price per terabyte, this keeps dropping, and you can get your ELA probably better than us. So just to complete the picture here on the physical devices, so we also have pre-packaged solution. We're not a hardware company. These are basically very standard servers from the industry, but we pre-packaged them to really make it easy for customers to start. And sometimes they say, I need this one-use system or desktop system, and we have this ready that they can order. And we also have a hyper-converged option. We have seen many customers coming and tell us, you know, we really like the combination of edge compute with edge file services. So we have actually done the system together with HP, and HP also sells this solution from HP as well, based on the simplicity, but it's not exclusive. You can also run it on a Nutanix, on a VMware, and that basically gets you a hyper-converged system with local AJ, local dedupe, and all the CTERA functionality running on top of it. And we even have a version for media. We have some large media customers like WPP and others. And in media, you really need very, very large files and very large cache size. So this device has a very large local cache, hybrid SAS SSD, and it's really designed for media workloads. I'll move to the drive. The drive is the desktop software. It's connected to the same global file system, but instead of doing NAS, instead of doing SMB, it basically offers access to files from the desktop. Okay, multi-folder, you can right-click on folders and you can sync them. You can send links to people. You can do content collaboration. You can access data on the web directly from your desktop with single sign-on. We also have a cache drive, so that's a drive on your PC that's basically elastic and everything is connected to the global file system. So it can be the same folder that someone is working from a NAS, from a filer device in an office, and someone from home is working through the same target from a desktop. And they have the same experience and the same content, and the data is all the time syncing between the sites and through the central object backend. We also do endpoint backup. So if you want to back up the PC, we support VSS. So we'll take a snapshot and we can take a time-based backup of the desktop data. And we also do some security. Everything is encrypted, obviously. We do MDM integration, and we can do remote wipe of the data if the device is lost. And you can see some example of the UI. We also have a mobile app. You can see it here. So we support iOS and Android. So you can have many people want to access the device, the data from anywhere when they're traveling. And we give that option as well. And again, everything is using the same data set. It's just different ways to access it. And the third part is the portal. That's the core of the system, the middleware that sits in the middle, gets the data from the clients, writes it into the object storage, and provides a management system. So it's a very large-scale management system. We talked about customers with tens of thousands of sites, 100,000 users. It's horizontally scalable. You can just keep adding servers to support the size that you need. You can either run it yourself or you can get it as a service. Again, I talked about our partners that run it already, and customers can basically subscribe to it as a service in Amazon or in a regional data center. Almost in every country in the world, there's a CTERA portal run by an integrator that can provide service. It supports multi-tenancy, group-based policies for the scale, and also we do a DEVOPS programmable APIs. So basically, our customers can, because of the large scale of the deployments, they sometimes prefer to write programs to automate the deployments, and we support that. And all the content security that happens in the backend. It's multi-cloud, as we said, so you can see basically we support all the big cloud providers as well as the on-prem object storage systems. So IBM, we can run an IBM Cloud, or we can connect to IBM cars on-prem. We can do Scality with HPE, we can do Dell EMC. You name your object and we'll connect to it. And we also have an insight service, which is basically another tier on top of it that allows you to get insight into the data and make knowledgeable decisions about usage and security, and it provides you dashboards that you can modify and customize to have full view of your data.
Question? Yes, I got one.
Yeah, please, Bernard.
On your DevOps SDK. Today, is it possible to integrate CTERA around a kind of macro service, cascading or services, and to use it as a part of a services?
Yes,
like a microservice.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So we have both REST APIs that can be used in order to store and read data from your microservices, or you can use our Python SDK, or using Ansible, you can create and provision the system. In addition to that, you can connect the microservices using NFS, through a filer that you can place in the cloud. As Eran mentioned, the edge filers have versions that run on premises, for example, on VMware or using our hardware, but also we have versions that can run in AWS and Google Cloud and Azure and so on. So you can use these in-cloud filers in order to provide storage pools for your microservices, and to allow them to, more importantly, to allow them to exchange data across regions. So today, usually when you run a Kubernetes cluster or a microservices environment, you're usually limited to storage inside a single cluster. And if you want to run something that's global and deals with information in different regions, you have to deal with the replication of the data. So, but when you work with a global file system, you can essentially write a microservice based application or system where the different microservices are located everywhere in the world, and they all collaborate on the same set of data.
And we're also showing here in the background some examples of the DevOps, how you can basically write code to automate every function of the gateways and replicate it to thousands of sites. So, and we have customers that use it every day, like they wrote their own code for deploying CTERA as a code. And for us as programmers, this is obviously we like it.
And it's not a problem for you to maintain all of that?
Yeah, no, they maintain. We give them the SDK as an open source. It's in GitHub, and they can create their own code. Basically, it's a way to automate the configuration.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have a couple of questions from the chat. One is coming from Tony Locke. Tony Locke, analyst at Freeform Dynamics, is asking, does Insight also do data classification?
Aaron, maybe take that one, please.
It doesn't do data classification yet. However, we are doing currently integrations with a variety of providers, which I can't say their names now, but vendors in this data classification and security market. And we're going to offer that in the future.
Yeah, we're going to have an announcement about that soon that we'll share with you.
Two more questions. One is from Alex McDonald, again from SNIA EMEA. Alex is asking, there's a lot of metadata in distributed file systems. How do you secure and manage it?
Yes, Aaron, you want to cover
that? Yes, so this is a big, wide question, but we have a number of We have a metadata database, which is this part of the CTERA portal. In this database, we essentially don't store the data, we store the metadata only. So the metadata and the data are separate. All the data is stored in the object storage as deduplicated, compressed, and encrypted blobs that are not decipherable without the keys. And the metadata is stored in the metadata database in a separate location. So essentially, in order to access the data, if an attacker would have to hack into both of these systems, both the object storage and the metadata database, and to have access to your keys. Otherwise, they will not be able to decipher anything.
Thank you. We have another question from Tony Locke again. Does the global file system and management policies also have the ability to geo-lock data?
That's a great question, right, Aaron, leading to the zones feature?
Yes, so by geo-lock, I assume that you mean to have the information available in this one region and not available in another. And
yeah, or available in particular regions, but not other regions. So
exactly,
any combination of the above.
Yeah, I think perhaps Liran has a slide on this, but we have what's called the zones feature, which it was just released in CTERA 7.0, which is exactly this. So you can actually tag your data with zones. Each piece of data or folder can have multiple tags, and you can define which of the locations have access to each of the tags. So it's in a very flexible way. You can say information with tag A can be seen from, let's say, from United States and UK, and the information with tag B can be seen only from China, and so on. In addition to the zones, you can also define multiple buckets in the object storage, and you can store them at multiple geographic locations. So you have the data locality and sovereignty. You have the ability to configure exactly what kind of data you want to be stored physically in each of the locations.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Not at the moment, not at the
Okay. So we will resume from here, a minute here. Okay. So let's review the use cases. So we talked about the architecture and the products. Let's see what it's used for. So typical ones, NAS modernization, basically replacing a NAS with, like we talk, a cache device with object backend with much more efficiency. And
we don't see your screen, Laurent.
Sorry about that. It's okay now?
Yes.
Okay. So NAS modernization, basically replacing a NAS system with a cache device to the cloud and using multi-cloud object as a backend with built-in backup. It's used for both the file sharing as well. It can be primary storage, can be secondary storage for backup and archiving. And that's the main, I would say, the main core use case. Then you extend it to the multi-site collaboration. So now you're not talking just one or two sites, you're talking about many sites. And here goes this synchronization between site and the central management and the geo-locking segmentation, the zones that Aaron just described. And then you add the endpoints, and that's the use case of private file sync and share, desktop clients that connect and share data based again on the corporate file system connected to the data in the filers, everything within one namespace. Extend to that is the edge data processing. That's typically more targeted towards machine-generated data, surveillance camera, medical systems, generating huge automotive systems, generating huge amounts of data in remote locations that needs to be moved to cloud or central location for analysis. Where the data sets are huge. It's usually many times inefficient to just try to move all the data, or not even practical with the connectivity network lines. And there's a really strong use case for doing on-prem edge data processing and only moving the products of this processing to the cloud. And that's many times using also our HCI filers, the hyperconverged integrated systems that combine also compute workloads with secure data access. Then you have the media space, customers with large, very large data sets. We're talking about many petabytes of data, sites with hundreds of terabytes of data for a small number of users, video editors, reporters, broadcasting groups, you know. And here they need the large file handling, the very fast protocol, the Mac OS experience. We have invested quite a bit in Mac, and that's really helpful for these guys, and the streaming. So even if you want to download a file, you don't want to necessarily download all of it, but basically access it from you know, from the middle, from where the user is looking at the data. And the last thing is the distributed cloud. There was a question earlier about Anthos and Outposts and all these solutions and Azure Stack, and basically CTERA is an enabler for global file system across what's called now tethered cloud services, these Outpost type solutions that we're already certified for. So that's where it fits in. So this is the scope of the use cases. Jim, you wanted to add something?
You know, we can show a slide separately, Laurent, about just where we position ourselves in the market. I think there's some questions that as we go through here that
okay.
are getting into the context.
Let's complete that, and then we can show it later on. Okay.
Sounds good. Yep.
You know, Aaron talked about security. We mentioned security as one of our main differentiators, and really this system was designed bottoms up to be the most secure, and we're really proud of the certifications we got. We are, as I mentioned, approved by the US DoD, and we're used in, you know, top secret environments, and this is really the highest level of security that a product can get. We are compliant with all the regional certifications, GDPR, HIPAA, SOC 2, all these, of course. And we provide very advanced audit trail and log forensics capabilities, two-factor authentication, smart card authentication. We talked about the content-aware security. And one of the big things is data sovereignty. We allow you to control deploy. It can be 100% private in your file or firewall, in your cloud, in your country. You decide where it goes, and that's where the system will go in. You want it hosted, it will be hosted. You want it private, it will be private. The cost saving is dramatic. You know, there are multiple levels of the cost saving. First of all, the caching. You know, if you had the 100 terabyte system, you can now decrease the local footprint to 10 or 20% of that, which is the most frequently accessed data, and you just save the significant amount of your cost in equipment and management, and basically you move everything to the cloud. Many of our customers, they are able to purchase our system just with what they save on the annual maintenance of their NetApp system. Okay, so by taking the money they have for maintenance, they can purchase this system, connect it to S3, and basically, you know, S3 is now less. We write here a cent a gigabyte, but it's actually even less than that. And they can really scale as much as they need. And usually they even remove the quotas from the users. They can say, put as much as you want, because in the past, there was a quota per user. With this, you can just put as much as you need. The dedupe is another factor of cost saving. So because we dedupe at the source, usually we see something between 60, 70, it could be something 80%, really depends on the type of the data compression rates, which means that we both save on bandwidth as well as on cloud storage cost. So not only we're saying we dropped your storage cost to less than a cent a gigabyte per month, we actually dropped it by 2/3 more because of compression and dedupe. The multi-cloud is a very important factor also for cost saving, because we said we are not the cloud, you bring your cloud, basically we allow you, the customers, to bargain and get the best deal. And they can also move the data, so they can start with on-prem Dell and they can move it to Amazon, or they can choose at the later time to move it to IBM. It's really up to them where they want to put the data. We give them actually tools that allow them to move the data between buckets. And the pricing is subscription-based, pay as you go, and the whole beauty of the thing is that you get one system that solves many use cases, so you don't need to buy a NAS system, a backup system, a collaboration system, an archiving system, and all these things separately. So this is the beauty of the thing.
Liran, sorry to interrupt. We have a question from Jean-François Marie, representing SNIA. as well, alongside Alex. Jean-Francois is saying, sorry if I missed that. What OS do you support? And what are your dependencies to that OS?
Well, on the client side, we support any OS. We have, you know, as a NAS device, you know, you can connect any client to it, so there's SMB or NFS, right? And on the desktop client, we also support all the Windows, Linux, Mac, any of these. So there's no really limit to the OS support here. And the central side is run as a virtual, the middleware, the portal is run as a virtual machine. So virtual machine or containers you can basically run on any operating system. Does this answer your question?
Yes.
Jean-Francois, does that answer your question?
Yes, perhaps adding to that question. Thank you for the answer.
Thank you.
What do you need? Do you need just a raw device or a file system?
Sorry, Jean-Francois, we can't hear you very well. Could you speak up? We can't hear you very well.
You can't see me very well? Okay.
We can see you, but
no, we can't hear you very well.
Oh, okay. Is that better now?
The volume, yes. Could you speak up?
Is that better now? If I speak now, is that okay?
Better.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you need in order to get running? Do you need a file system? Do you need a raw device? What do you need as a backend?
For the backend, we need a hypervisor. We need to be able to run a virtual machine.
But from a storage perspective, sorry.
Storage perspective, the metadata is stored in block storage, and but that's a small fraction of the data, and all the data is stored in objects. So basically, an S3 target.
Okay, so if I want to run your CTERA Edge, I just need a small. You're gonna do SMB, NFS. You do all the service locally, right? You replace the filer.
Yes, yes. So,
okay,
we just need either you can get a physical device and you get everything prepackaged, or we get the virtual machine, some block storage for the cache, compute for running the application memory, and then it would connect basically to a CTERA portal that would write everything. And the CTERA portal is the backend service, which either customers can choose to run privately or to get it as a service from one of our partners.
Okay, if I provide you with a Linux with NVMe SSDs as a backend, will that work?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, the faster you need the cache, you can do as fast as you want. You know, it depends on the type of storage you connect to that. In our physical appliances, we have systems that are super fast NVMe, and we have others that are just SATA. For more capacity and less performance, depending on the user need. The cost.
Okay. Thank you so much.
In terms of the key, going now more to market, where we typically sell our solutions. So we typically in large companies, industrial, media, public sector, local government, defense, healthcare, financial services. So the commonality between all of these are they're very security conscious companies, security regulated. They have large distributed deployments that require our capability and our central management and our scale. Many of them also have significant file workloads. So we're not talking about, some home folders with, some photos and office files, at the large scale of many users, yes, but this is not, but we're talking about like CAD files, media files, machine generated files, log files. So significant local workloads, and also creative content editing, people that edit data on site and need to be able to do like video decoding and things like that. We came out with major release only a few months ago, end of last year, and that was 7.0. I want to touch on it really. We don't have too much time, so I want to touch on it really lightly. But basically, we came up with 4 main new capabilities. One is the CTERA Direct. CTERA Direct is a new version of our cloud protocol, which really accelerated performance by as much as 3 times and sometimes more. We are really the fastest solution in the industry today for moving data from a filer, edge filer, to cloud, to object. We do something like 30 terabytes per day, which is really, really much faster than anyone else in the market. The second thing is the CTERA zones. Aaron touched on it when you asked the question. There was a question about keeping data in certain countries. So that's the feature that Aaron described with the CTERA zones, basically geosegmenting the file system for compliance and efficiency. The third is CTERA migrate. We saw that one of the biggest challenges of customers to roll out the NAS modernization projects is basically data migration, moving data away from legacy old systems to the new systems. And also moving to cloud, you have to take into consideration the bandwidth, the upstream bandwidth, different, are these NAS devices being used now? You don't want to overload the system. So the CTERA Migrate is a built-in data migration tool that's provided as part of our filer. So our filer customers get it with the filer, and it scans the networks, does local discovery of data on the site, and gives you the tool to automatically move data into the cloud, the CTERA file system. And the last thing is the Mac Assist. It's basically a suite of tools for Mac OS users that give them a much advanced, much better experience. Mac users also are often left behind in terms of SMB and FS protocols that were not really designed for Mac. Mac had its own Apple protocols, and we added the capabilities in the Finder that allow you to see the data more easily, see what's cached, what's not cached, search data, all from the desktop, from the Finder of the Mac and the mobile device. And the DEVOPS we touched on. There are a few customer stories here. I want to get to the demo, so I'll run through that quickly, but you can find it also on our website. The Gore, WL Gore, is a leading, fabrics and clothes producer, and they use our technology to basically roll out the different sites across the world, global sites. Carlyle Group is an example of a financial, probably the world's largest private equity, that's using CTERA for highly secure financial records in all sites across the world. And they actually did a video of explaining how they rolled it and how it solved the problem. Glenn Davis Group is an example of a media company using a hyperconverged solution with HPE for media, large video editing. And we can share with you these slides later on. And this is just the last turn to touch on one of the points that we did launch a solution with HPE, and actually there was also a new version of that announced about a week ago with Nimble. I mentioned HPE as one of the hyperconverged partners that we have, and we partner with them basically that every hyperconverged customers of HPE, either on Nimble, DHCI, or SimpliVity, can get a free filer from CTERA. It's limited by capacity and the cloud service, but they can actually use it as the local NAS and the hyperconverged, and they can basically connect later to a cloud service and use all the functions of the system. HP is also selling it to their customers, and we see very good traction to the system. So I thought it was interesting that two markets basically aligning themselves together, the hyperconverged market and the distributed file services. And that's, but we also promised something that's coming. So this is the time where we actually get to that. And we are preparing to launch a new solution early March, and we'll give you a sneak peek on that. This is under embargo from here, the next few slides, and we'll be able to share more details as we get closer to the launch date. And one of the main topics that was on everyone's top of mind last year was the blend of home and office. Overnight, millions of people were forced to move their office to the home, and they end up with a table desk that looks very similar to the desk I have here in front of me, with some of my kids' homework on the one side of the table, and Excel files and and financial papers on the other side of the table, right? So all of us are dealing with that. I can see the images of you in your home offices, right? And really, what happened was that many organizations were forced basically to open access to the file and to the office environments overnight. And that created a gold mine for hackers. And it's no surprise that some security companies report up to 8 times the increase in ransomware in 2020, right? And what are they attacking? And these are the most frequently attacked applications: Dropbox, Google Suite, Office 365, OneDrive, and Box, right? Why are they attacking it? Because that's where the files are. And this is what the attackers want. They want to get to their files, to encrypt your files, and then ask you for ransom, right? So this is the game that's being played. And companies open things really fast because they had no choice, and many of them got attacked in the middle. And now, as a second wave, they're thinking, okay, I need to open access, but how can I do it in a secure way? And obviously saying, okay, let's connect to the Google or to the OneDrive, that's an easy solution. But as we saw in the SolarWinds example and in other cases, this is not necessarily the most secure example. And also, in many cases, it doesn't provide you access to the data that you need. Because if you were working against a NetApp, a NAS in the corporate data center with different ACLs, folder shares, these are not accessed on the OneDrive. The OneDrive is a flat system. It doesn't connect to the ACLs of the NetApp. You need to move the data from one system to another. You end up with 2 different namespaces, not to mention that it's a SaaS service that many times is not even allowed by different companies for hosting certain highly secure data sets. And that's where we come with our solution. As you saw, we already have many of these building blocks for a remote home or remote small office solution, but we are actually coming with something very cool that would even take it to the next level. And basically what we're coming is with a suite of solutions based also including both software as well as hardware that allows you to extend your NAS workloads, your corporate file shares, to satellite offices and up to home user offices with a combination of a desktop client as well as a prepackaged small appliance that can sit on any desktop. Again, we're not in the hardware business. You might recognize the box. It's one of the Lenovo systems, but we prepackage it in a certain way that, you know, you don't need to start with a rack mount system. You can have a filer with 1 terabyte of flash system embedded and basically access many terabytes of data in the cloud in a very, very efficient way. No moving parts, and you can roll this out to thousands of locations efficiently and basically get your cached access point to the network. You don't need to use USB drives. This is totally centrally managed from corporate, and corporate has full control over the data. If it needs to stop access, it can stop access. And if it needs to open access, it can open access very easily. So this is, again, the new work from home suite or satellite office suite that we'll be launching. And you all should be hearing from that about us during March. Right now it's scheduled for around March 10th, but we will get you the final materials and notice right before. Right, Jim? You want to add to that?
No, that's exactly right. We're aiming for March 10th, and you'll hear from us before then. Laurent, you're on mute there.
Ah, sorry. So if I was asking any questions. So if no more questions, let's maybe switch to the demo. If Shannon is here.
Yep, I'm here, Laurent.
Hi, Shannon. Hi. Pleasure to see you. So let me stop sharing here, and it's your show now. And later on, Aaron and myself and Jim are also available here, and we can answer any questions also. I believe there's also a group time after the presentation, and we'll stay online for any additional questions.
Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm Shannon Pope. I'm based in North Carolina in the United States, and I've been at CTERA for about 6 years. So I've worn a couple of different hats and still do a couple of different positions, but my main title is Director of Customer Success. So I'm a technical resource. Usually I do a lot of demos, I do a lot of qualification, but I can also do architecture, some of the pre-sales work as well. But what I want to show you guys today, I mean, obviously, I thought the presentation was really good. It touched on the different components that we have. I'm going to kind of show you what those look like in the look and the feel and some of the functionality. And the way that I'm set up today, and I just want to kind of cover this before we jump in, is I am going to log into the portal. Again, this is our core component. that can sit either on-prem with some type of storage backend. It can sit purely in the cloud. But in every CTERA's implementation, other than our SaaS model, this is a component that needs to be there, right? It's the heart and soul. It's where all the management is done. Compression, deduplication, data protection, audit trails for compliance, all of that. So I will be going in there a little bit to show some of the management and the device management, some of the clouds set up and everything like that. And then I'll move toward the edge of the component. So Laurent had a couple of different screens that talked about the edge. One included the edge filers. So I have 2 of those, so you can see how data syncs between one or the other. Also, the different settings that you can do as far as pinning and accessing the data that is not cached on the gateway or edge filer. And then the drive and mobile experience. So this is meant for more home workers, like Laurent was talking about. Maybe there's someone that's a contractor, maybe it's a group you're doing a project with. And so I'll kind of touch on all of those. So 2 edge filers, and then I'm going to show you kind of the workstation or edge component. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to touch on just briefly is as far as migration goes. And this is a question for a lot of customers or partners. You know, how easy is it to get data from an existing file server, file shares, NAS components? How easy is it to take that data and pull it into CTERA? So usually that's done with our edge filers. So our edge filers are devices that are NAS appliances, that are caching NAS appliances. You join them to the Active Directory domain, and so they look and feel to an administrator or someone using Active Directory a lot like a file server, right? So we're able to understand permissions. We're able to look at file attributes and metadata, and then we pull that in depending on what the customer's goal is. We're able to migrate the data in with all the permissions, so we're not asking the customer to restructure their data or change permissions or anything like that. And then we look at the speed that the customer wants to implement. You know, we've had customers with half a petabyte that's trying to get data into the cloud as fast as possible. We have other customers that just have shares in different locations. They're trying to just move so that there's no disruption to the remote user. So depending on how the client wants to do that, you know, we can set up multiple edge filers that migrate the data, or we can do, you know, one office at a time. Just all depends. But one of the newest tools that we have to enable us to do this is our migration tool, our file server migration. This allows us to take existing shares that are available on a file server or a NAS. We can discover those or look at different attributes of the files that are in that share. This is an example. And then we can do a discovery report where we can look at the amount of data, when it was accessed, when it was last modified. We can break it down by file type. This is a lot of information that customers typically don't know. So when we're sizing our appliances, our edge filers, a lot of times one of the main things we want to know is what the file types are, so we know, you know, how powerful or what the traffic's going to look like, as well as the amount of data that's hot. So what's being used most recently. And so with this tool, we can look at that quickly. We can decide how big that edge filer or how powerful that edge filer needs to be. So that's very helpful in sizing. And then we have a migration tool. So once we kind of identify the files and the shares we want to migrate, we can use this tool to pull that data over. And this tool can be scheduled. The bandwidth can be it can be limited, obviously. So you're able to really control not only the data that you're pulling in, but how quickly it comes in, when it's scheduled, and so forth. So this tool, I just want to touch on that briefly, has been a very big help in a lot of our accounts where migrations are either a worry or could be pretty complex. As far as the tool itself, so I'm going to start by logging into the portal. Again, the portal is our main control center. It is kind of the single source of record for the data that's coming in. So we're looking at versions coming in. We're protecting that data. It does all the deduplication. It does the brokering and the syncing between other sites and other devices. As you would expect, when you log in, you can look at the health of everything. Again, I'm not going to spend a ton of this, but I do want to show kind of the look and feel. What's your data growing like? What's it looking like? So for capacity planning, we are a software company, so everything is a licensed subscription model. So licensing is obviously a very important thing that we look at. So we can see how many licenses a customer has, or they can, how many is in use and how many they are remaining. We're multi-tenant, so that's very important in a multi-tenant environment, because one portal or one CTERA implementation might be given, let's say, 100 virtual gateway or appliance licenses. But you may want to only give each tenant 10 or something like that. That way you can control who gets the licenses, who doesn't. For a lot of service providers, that's very important. For large customers, they like to do the multi-tenancy by business unit or region or things like that. So licensing obviously is very important. From a device management standpoint, Laurent mentioned that we have customers with thousands of edge filers that are implemented. Others have tens of thousands of users. For us, obviously, we're providing a global file system, right? So a single namespace with a directory structure that people can tap into. It's important to us to know what devices are connecting to the portal, so that we can monitor those devices. We can push out updates or configurations to those devices. It's also very important for us to do permissions or quotas based on either devices or users. There's lots of ways that we can control the environment centrally. And so for some of those environments that had tens of thousands, or thousands of gateways or edge filers, they're able to manage that only with a few people by this type of screen, where they can locate the device, they can see what version it's running, they can quickly go into that device, see if different services are running, they can look at the local storage on that device, how much is being used, what the shares are. You can edit and manage those shares centrally. And if this is not enough, you can branch out and go directly into the device and manage the device directly. This might be for either troubleshooting or renaming a device, looking at network settings and so forth. So I see a couple of chats popping up. Are there questions you want me to address at the moment?
I think we can take it after.
Okay.
Shannon, you can keep going. Thanks.
Okay. Sure. So devices obviously are important. For some of our very large customers, are very security centric customers. They want plenty of audit trails for this government or financial, for looking at different things like that, for compliance. But one of the main things that we are wanting to do, again, is have that global file system. So you have to be able to structure that global file system, provide permissions, support different permission structures. And the way that we do that is through our cloud drive folders. So in this implementation, I have different cloud drive folder. A cloud drive folder, just think, if CTERA is the C drive, these are the different folders and areas that you would be pushing or syncing out to the edge devices. My files represents different users and their home directories. Some customers choose to store their home directories, like for VDI implementations and such, on CTERA. Other customers use it solely as a department or company share type structure. And if I look at that, I've got a couple of shares that I can look into, one being kind of NY data. And if I want to look at that particular, the folder structure of that share, I can look at it, that cloud folder, and see what folders are inside. I can upload files here. I can control permissions for remote access. I can share data externally. There's lots of things that you can do directly within the portal from the folders themselves. If you're a administrator, and I'm going to show this later, you can also revert back to previous versions, great for ransomware or restores, or customers or end users can even do that themselves. So that's a brief look into the portal. The rest of the demo is going to be from what the edge looks like. So what's the edge experience for an end user that's trying to access the data? Because that's really what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to improve not only the management and control of the data, but also what the user's experience is. For users that are used to working on file servers or NASs, they have map drives. This map drives are very important for environments that have spreadsheets that do maybe they're linked workbooks that they need a specific path to be able to function. A lot of financials and creative folks are kind of dependent on that. So we don't want to disrupt access for some people. And then some companies want to disrupt it completely, right? They want to take users off of that traditional map drive and get them into a more modern way of accessing data. And that's where our web access, our agent, and mobile app come in. In this environment, I have a gateway or edge filer. I can see the shares that are on it. If I look at the shares, I can go into and look at, let's say, look at this images. Laurent touched on how gateways or edge filers can be set up in a couple of different modes. They're in caching by default, meaning that they're only going to store the hot data, and they're going to evict and make room and create pointers to data that's in the portal, data that's not being used. So you're minimizing the amount of local storage that you need. This is a big goal for most of our customers. But you can set these up in caching, which means they're stubs. I'm going to show you the difference in a second. Or you can even pin down folders. So for some clients, creatives, for example, there's a lot of collateral files that they want always to be local to that device. Or it could be a remote site that's in Japan with terrible latency and bandwidth. Maybe caching and stubbing is not the right answer for that location. So being able to pin down folders and files means that they're always going to be a local and available on that filer. So if I look at, for example, this red flowers, it's 84, size on disk is 84. That means it's cached and stored locally on that edge filer. If I bring up my second edge filer, so I can have them beside each other, there's the same folder structure. There's in my data. I have my images. Some of these images have a little gray X on them. This tells me that that image is a not stored locally. That is a pointer or a stub file that basically has the metadata that tells the filer how to go fetch it from the portal. So again, if I look at red flowers, 84, size on disk is 0. But if I'm an end user, the file looks available. So I just double click on it. It opens up the file. And now you can see the little red X went away, or the gray X, and 84 on disk. So that's how quickly you can retrieve files. It all depends, of course, on the size of the file, the bandwidth, everything. Of course, we optimize that as much as possible with our protocol that we have. But when you have multiple filers that are able to sync data, access the same data, so let's say I throw a text document here. This gateway or this edge filer is syncing to the portal. The portal receives that file, just the changed bit, so it's minimizing it. And then that data is synced down to any other location that is syncing that same information or that same directory structure. So you can see the new document popped up here. Let's say I rename it to sync 2. I expect to see that change on the other edge filer, within a few seconds. But also remember that the portal is receiving that change. So there it's changed its name. When you have edge filers in multiple locations, obviously you can do multi-site collaboration. But in some business critical sites, you could have multiple edge filers on the same site for failover or load balancing, or you can have a centralized edge filer that, let's say you had 10 sites, you could have a centralized edge filer that's going to give you a copy of the data that's at all the remote sites. That can be used for data analytics, for just a local copy to look at data for employees at the headquarters, maybe IT, or it can actually be used for a failover device for all of the locations. So we have some customers that use Microsoft DFS namespace, very simple way to have a virtual name for multiple shares, and those are able to be synced across multiple locations. So with DFS, you can automatically fail over and automatically fail back. For a lot of IT companies, having that remote office, having a remote file server, you're doing a once-a-day backup. if that filer goes, or if their traditional file server goes down, now they've got to do a restore somewhere, stand up another device, fail people over. Now what happens when this site comes back online? How do they get the data back? It's a nightmare. This automates the entire process front to back. So very, very good for not only site failover, but also being able to do ransomware remediation. So that's the edge filers. Then we have an agent. So our agent is software that you can put on the edge, on the workstation. So think of this workstation. This is a Windows 10 machine that's sitting at someone's home or a contractor's house or something like that. When you install this agent, you're able to enable a once point in time backup and recovery of certain folders and files that you connect to or select. You can also use the cloud drive. So the CTERA drive, as Laurent said, is basically the ability to do the synchronization that's happening within the gateways or the edge filers, but on a local machine. This could be very important for people working with very large files, especially during the pandemic. Could be creative files of people doing video editing. CAD files are very large, things like that. When you install this, you end up with a cloud drive that is part of your Windows Explorer. So you can see I've got my PC. So the look and feel of it is a lot like a OneDrive, which most people are familiar with, similar to like a Dropbox. But the real difference is, one, how we're syncing the data. We're encrypting it, we're deduplicating it, but also we're syncing and accessing the same global file system that the edge filers are. So you can have 100 people working in an office, 100 people working from home. They all get the same folder and file presentation, and the data syncs between the two, right? So if I go under shared with me, there's NY data. There's the images that I was just working with. Here's the sync2 folder. Let's rename it to sync3. And immediately when I do this, you're going to see, before I do it, you're going to see this, the CTERA agent is going to notice that there's a change. It syncs that change to the portal. So again, the portal's getting kind of the gold copy of everything. And then those changes are pushed down to the edge filers. Right, so these things are all syncing together, working in conjunction with one another, and it just gives the users another way to access the data remotely. And then finally, what I'll show is the mobile application, and then I'll do one other thing super quick. But oops, a sec. So we do have a mobile app that we support virtually every application or mobile operating system on the market. And I'm missing it. Here we go. Let's move this over, make room. Okay. So our CTERA application looks and feels a lot like what we see in the CTERA drive. Right, this is also the same look and feel you would get if we logged into the portal directly with this user. So there's multiple ways. And if I look at the cloud drive, I can see the same look and feel as what I was looking at earlier. I have images, I can access the images. There's the sync3 folder. Let's say that you're a builder or an insurance person and you're out in the field or even military, you need to take a picture of some damage or the stage of a building or enemy, I don't know. This is a way that you could quickly do it and then centralize where that data is going to ultimately land. So I'll just take a quick picture and use that. And then what we're going to see is, again, that uploads to the portal, and all of these devices that's syncing with the portal know that there's a change that's happened. You can see it's all across each one of the devices. And so you're able to sync between the mobile and, of course, the portal and the other devices. And then the final thing that I'll show is data protection, right? So if I go into the portal, again, all of these changes have been happening while I've been going. This is the portal, of course. There's the capture, there's the sync. But if I wanted to restore a file, I could show deleted items. I see that there's some other files that I've deleted in the past. I can undelete those. There's the mountain file. I can revert back. If I get rid of the deleted items, I can revert back. These are images, so there's not a lot of previous versions, but I could go back and look at the date and the time of a certain file, do a restore. And then the end users also have the ability to self-service that restore. So if I go to a file, I've got a versions file that I change all the time. If I right click, choose previous versions, I'm able to see what versions are available in the portal, and that's based off of the user's or the administrator's retention policy, and you can grab as a user and do a restore as well. So that's just a few things that we can do. I think that gives you maybe a good taste of what what CTERA can do from a platform standpoint. And unless there's something specific, that's all I had.
Shannon, thanks a lot. That was I think that was really good because you showed what the unique differentiator for CTERA, right? No matter where you're accessing the file system, whether it's from an office filer or from your laptop or from your mobile device, you have the same access to that global file system, the same permissions across any device. You don't need to, as an IT person, you don't need to deploy a gateway in one office and download a separate file sharing application and manage separate vendors. It's all delivered within a single package, and that's a unique differentiator for CTERA. So thanks for showing that. So I guess we'd love to open this time up for the networking hour. Too bad we don't have joint some cocktails to share together. But if anyone has any questions about the demo or anything from the presentation that you saw today that you'd like to discuss, we're all of us here to chat about it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So again, I'd like to go over to the US this time, and I cannot see Randy's camera, but I hope he's still listening. Randy, are you still there? Oops. Could you come off mute if you can hear me calling you? But I might. Okay, well, someone else who writes for a US company here, but not based in the US, is Enrico. Enrico Signoretti from GigaOM, obviously mainly a US-based company. Enrico, you're fairly up to speed with CTERA and so on, but you also speak to a lot of other companies. What are your takeaway thoughts from today's presentation? Was there anything that you found unique, or again, same question? So did you think it was a bit of a Me Too technology? How did you feel about it?
Well, honestly, I mean, I think CTERA is probably one of the most complete solution in the market. I mean, not many vendors can provide, both the NAS sync and share like, even if it's not the usual sync and share, for instance, in some respect, and other tools. So from the collaboration point of view, they give more options to large enterprises, and they can both cover small, medium, maybe with service providers, not directly, but actually they can start small and grow up to thousands or maybe tens of thousands of concurrent users. So from this point of view, is a very interesting solution. Maybe there are areas where other competitors can be better, but if we look at the overall at the entire picture here, I think that they excel in what they do, and maybe this was less visible last year or the year before, let's say before COVID, because many in, and I know maybe I need a confirmation from them, but the use cases were not so broad. I mean, the same organization didn't have at the same time work from home and small and large branch offices and headquarters all together. I mean, it was a range of them, but not all of them. Now with the with COVID, you have people at home, you have, you know, some small team reorganized in local teams, but not, you know, very large offices, and still in some places you still have, you know, large offices. And also there is another thing that is more cloud than in the past that helps them, you know, with that storage backend, the object storage backend, to move data quickly. I mean, they are not really moving data, but just the cache, so they can help organization to, you know, to change their mind quickly. I mean, today I'm on Amazon, tomorrow I could be on Google if necessary, but, you know, there is no need to migrate stuff. I mean, it's a lazy migration, and this is very, very helpful because it improves you know, flexibility. I don't know if they found it in the field, but actually for the VDI, especially for home directories, having you know, all these virtual desktops now, and there are a lot of companies taking advantage of virtual desktops. And usually in the enterprise, it's not that virtual desktop is you know, something that you never had a VDI and you start with virtual desktop. Most of the time is that you already had a VDI experience, and now virtual desktop, or whatever, sorry, cloud virtual desktop, to be honest, it is becoming a thing. So the various Azure VDI, or, you know, Google VDI or whatever, and you can spin up, you know, hundreds of new machines quickly. But actually, how do you provide, you know, the services, especially file services, to these people? And with just spinning up a virtual appliance of CTERA there, probably you can get access to home directories and data very quickly to these guys. So that's, you know, and these are temporary workstation most of the time. So you don't need to move anything, just cache something close to the. So from this point of view, I think that the fact that they cover end-to-end all the enterprise needs, and no matter the size of the company. Did I get it right?
Thank you, Enrico. Yes, indeed. And VDI is became much more a priority in the last year, obviously. And like you mentioned, this can be either a VMware Citrix type VDI or in-cloud VDI. And we just launched last year. We also announced our support for the Amazon Workspaces, which is their version of that. So very much indeed. Thank you.
So we have Randy back. Hello, Randy. So yes, I'd like to hear from you, because obviously you have the US sort of view of things, where, you know, CTERA is obviously more established, like most companies in our space. From what you heard today, what are your takeaway points? What do you think are the strong messages you heard from the CTERA team today, in your eyes?
Can you hear me all right? Yeah, I don't know that I would use from today type of thing, because my familiarity is a little bit longer, and I've worked with Jim before on projects. So I know a lot of implementations that I've worked with customers on that this is important. They've got a great solution, and it fits a lot of customer needs. I think the messages today were updates, and that did a good job bringing out the need for collaboration, and more than just specific cases, it's more general now. And so that's a big part of the messaging. They've added a lot of other capabilities. Those are all great and everything, but the changes that I've seen had to do with many customers are very much interested in collaboration tools, and yet maintaining centralized control over their data. And I think that CTERA's had that, and they're starting to message that a lot better now and hit the right mark with a lot of customers that are very, very much more receptive.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you so much. Any final questions, everyone? Because I know we're running short of time, so I'd like to invite any final. No, it seems like everything was very clear. So, well, I would like to say thank you very much to the CTERA team. Thank you for your time. It was a great presentation. Thank you, of course, to all our guests. Thank you for joining us.